let's take a look at a children's story. So, children's story, we learned about monster, okay? So in typical kids story, first we learned about the monster. We haven't seen the monster, but we heard about the monster, okay? Next thing is we train ourselves to fight, okay? So there's a monster, and I need to fight it. I have to take actions because I want to help. So I train myself to fight that monster. And then the monster comes. Okay, so the monster shows itself. So what do? I fight, but I lost. That's the pressure. So, you know why kids like to keep reading stories? It's because that it's not always like really smooth. Always a happy ending, of course. Okay, it's nice for a children's story because we want a happy ending. But throughout the story, we need some sort of stress. We want trouble because we want to see how characters interact with the monster. We want to see how the character treat the problem, resolve the problem. So this is very important. So you lost the battle. And what's the next thing? And the character, this guy, think of a different approach. So I really want to kill the monster. What else can I do? And find that approach and defeat that monster. So that's a typical children's story. You know a problem, you train yourself to fight the problem, and the problem comes, but you lost. Okay, so, but you don't give up because that's not who you are. You don't give up. You think of different approach, and then you fight that monster again, and you win. So, typical kid story. We can use this for business story. We can use this for your interview story. So, what's the problem? What did you do? And problem comes. Maybe you didn't do so well because you're not experienced enough, but you didn't give up. You tried again, and you win. So, that's the flow of a children's story. So, we turn that into a business version. So if you have a good business story that you want it to be applicable, you can apply in any situation, also in interviews. We turn it around. First, we need a hook. And that is why first sentence is important. We have a hook. Hook is that we start in the beginning of the story. The story. We hook the interviewer's attention. Okay? We hook it so they won't go anywhere. They won't be thinking about, what's for lunch? Okay, what's the meetings about? Okay, so what do I do after work? Okay, so they don't think about that because you already hooked them. You should hook them in your story. And you introduce the problem. Okay, that's the monster. And then you provide a solution. Because sometimes you don't really have time to discuss. You find a problem, you lost, and then you try a different approach, and then you win. Okay, so it has to be faster for adults, for business. So you have problem, you have solution, and then you talk about traction. What's traction? Traction is how you're qualified to handle the problem. Okay, so how you're qualified to resolve the problem. That's traction, your track record of resolving issues. And finally, action. Okay, so if you think in this order, you would have a very interesting story. Okay, the action is not the same action that we talk about for STAR formula, because the action is like what do you do? But the action here is like, what do you need your audience, in this case, your interviewers, to take? What kind of action do you want them to take? Okay, so that's the last part, action. So this is a good business story. So let's try this out. Tell me about a time you faced a challenging situation. Okay, let's try. How do we answer that with the story flow that we just introduced? So a unique and memorable way to make sure your listener keep listening. So you need some kind of hook. So in this part is a hook. Okay, so you can see that people are grabbing money. What kind of hook can you give? You ask question. That's question. That's the best hook. But there are like 3 other techniques, but we don't really have a chance to cover because having hook, you should, if you are interested in learning on different type of hooks, okay, you can watch TED Talk. Because in 18 minutes, the speaker has to grab the audience attention really quickly, so they always have some sort of opening. Opening is the hook to get people's attention within very short amount of time. So this is a question. Have you ever got caught in the situation that the sales number are down and you exhausted all the marketing expenses? Well, I have, and that was certainly a great learning experience for me. So you ask a question, have you ever got caught in a situation that you have no money? Okay, you exhausted all the expenses. Okay, so what can we do? I had that experiences, and it was a good learning experience. Do you want to hear about it? But of course, you don't say that, but the audience will be like, ooh, interesting. Go on. I want to hear more. So that goes to the next stage. That's identify the problem. So what's the problem? So be sure you identify the problem you want to describe. So now you're telling a story. You want to talk about that problem. In 2019, our biggest competitor launched a new marketing campaign that dramatically cut the product price to almost half. We were about to lose our market advantage. That's the problem. Because a competitor cut the price of a similar product that you offer, and then we are about to. Okay, so there's a big problem coming up. We are about to lose market advantage. So keep going. That's the pressure. So when people hear it, they'll be like, whoa, that sounds kind of troublesome. That's very stressful situation. Go on. Okay, so they want to keep listening to your story. And so this is the solution. Okay, so this is where you get to talk about your experiences, your expertise, and be sure to add value. So here is the response. Since we had almost no marketing budget left and very little time to react, we launched our YouTube channel for our customers to provide testimonies and share their experiences. So, because there's very little time to react, so reach out to customers and get their testimony to talk about how your product is more superior than others, so people can hear from the actual experiences from the customers, not from the seller, but from the customers alone. So it's more credible. So this is the action, the solution that you can provide. And then talk about traction. That's your track record. So it's time to convince your interviewer and show off your success. So talk about how you're qualified. Talk about your track record. So the secret of my success is to optimize our customers' user experiences, and I would love to have the opportunity to share more ideas with you. So that's the traction. My success, my secret of success is that I care about user experiences, and I would love to have opportunity to talk about this with you, okay? But I don't talk about it now because you want to keep pulling on your audience attention. It's like I'm not giving it to you right now, but I would provide you with details if you give me the opportunity later. So even in the interview, if the interviewers are really interested in listening to your story, for you to continue that story, they'll be begging you and say, please tell me more now, okay? But that's the traction. You have the advantage now because you show that you are qualified to turn things around in a bad situation. And finally, the action. So close your pitch with a clear request. Make sure your ask is as specific as possible. So make sure that your request is very specific. So have you ever caught in the situation in the sales number? Have you ever got caught in the situation that the sales numbers are down and you exhausted? Well, I have. And that is, that's the same message. All right, so let's just think about it right now, okay? We'll change that message. So you want to have a response at the end. So what do we say? Okay, forget about this part. Don't look at this part. You want to close with an action. Thank you for having me. Thank you for giving me the chance to share my stories. And I believe I have the expertise and experiences and the skills to help you solve your problems. So that is why I am qualified for this job. Is there anything else I can answer for you? See, is there anything else I can answer for you? Is the action. I talked about all my skills, all my expertise, and then you provide an action. You throw a question back to your interviewer and say, is there anything you need to know more about me? That's the action, okay? So is there anything that qualification that you need to clarify with me right now? Okay, so you say it professionally, nicely. That's the action you want to take. Sorry about this message, okay? So you really have to think about what kind of action you want the interviewers to take at the end of the story. And when you say that, it's telling the interviewer that your story is finished. You closed it.